All right, buckle up everybody, because today we're going back in time for a deep dive into something pretty sweet.
Sounds like my kind of deep dive.
We're talking about Hostess ads in comic books.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, those classic ads from the Bronze Age of comics.
Like the 70s, early 80s.
Exactly. You know those ones you're reading about Superman fighting Brainiac, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
there's Iron Man using ding-dongs to build a new suit of armor or something?
Oh, I love those ads. They're so wacky.
Yeah. This was all inspired by an awesome blog post from Superworld Comics all about these Hostess ads. It's a treasure trove of information. Superheroes and sugary snacks. What's not to love, right?
It's like a perfect combo, right? You know, you're reading about the Justice League saving the world, and then...
Boom, there's Wonder Woman using a Hostess fruit pie to stop a runaway train.
Uh-huh, yeah. It's crazy, but it somehow worked.
It really did. They were everywhere back then. This blog post actually mentions over 300 different ads. And get this, they featured, like, everybody. Pretty much every major character. And even a bunch of really obscure ones.
Yeah, like who'd they have?
Well, Richie Rich, for instance, he's got the most appearances.
Richie Rich? Really?
Yeah, he had like 36 different ads.
More than like Batman and Superman.
More than everyone. More than Spider-Man, even.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, Richie Rich, he's all about the finer things in life, right? So maybe Twinkies were like his guilty pleasure or something?
Yeah, maybe. What do you think, though? Like, what do you think drew companies to use comic books for this kind of advertising?
Well, I mean, comic books back then, they were huge, E.
Right.
Especially with kids. It was like their internet. You know, they wanted to see their heroes doing everything, even snacking on Twinkies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plus, those ads were just funny. I mean, they were totally over the top, you know, just like the comics themselves.
Yeah. They definitely had that same kind of energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The blog post actually highlights the very first ad in this whole series.
Oh, which one is that?
It's Batman and the Mummy from January 1975.
Okay, Batman and the Mummy, yeah.
They defeat a mummy with Twinkies.
Yeah, I remember that one. They, like, use the Twinkies to distract the mummy or something.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous and so brilliant. You know, it's pure Bronze Age gold.
Totally. It definitely has that, like, campy vibe, you know?
Yeah, like that whole Adam West Batman era.
Exactly. Like, they were already doing that kind of, like, comedic Batman on TV, so it makes sense that the ads would kind of follow suit.
Yeah, the blog post pointed out something that surprised me. We were talking about some of these, like, really out there character and snack pairings.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that Hot Stuff, the little devil, was all about those Hostess fruit pies?
Hot Stuff? Really? I would have thought he'd be more of a, like, chocolate cake kind of guy.
Right. Devil's food cake or something.
Exactly.
But no, fruit pies all the way. What's even more interesting is that his ad was the only double-page spread in the entire campaign.
Whoa, really?
Only one.
I wonder why.
Any theories?
Well, I mean, maybe he was just, like, super popular back then, right?
Maybe. I mean, it's interesting because his publisher, Harvey Comics, actually had the most Hostess ads overall.
More than Marvel and DC.
More than everybody.
Yeah.
They were like the Hostess kings.
Huh. I guess they really knew their target audience, those Harvey Comics guys.
You know, speaking of Marvel and DC, it's funny that DC, with all their big hitters like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, didn't really dominate this Hostess ad game.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising, right? You'd think they'd be all over it.
Yeah, but it just goes to show, you know, popularity can change. It's not always what you expect.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Harvey Comics, they were huge back then. Especially with, like, younger kids.
Yeah, their characters were definitely more kid-friendly, weren't they?
Uh-huh, for sure. They were all about, like, humor and fun.
Yeah.
But even within DC, you know who still came out on top?
Ooh.
Batman. He had more ads than any other DC hero.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess no matter what era it is, Batman's always going to be cool.
Makes sense. And of course, Spider-Man was a big player, too.
Yeah, Spidey was popular back then, too, right?
Yeah, he had a pretty successful live-action TV series going on.
Oh, yeah. With the
web shooters. And
yeah, the cheesy web shooters.
Yeah. So speaking of Spidey, there's this really interesting detail in one of his ads. There's a 1977 ad that features a character called Madam Web.
Okay, Madam Web.
But she's not the same Madam Web who later becomes like a major Spider-Man villain.
Oh, really?
It's two completely different characters with the same name.
Did they, like, run out of names or something?
I know, right?
Like, they just recycled it?
I mean, that happens sometimes, I guess, but I wonder if there's more to it.
Maybe the writers just really liked the sound of Madam Web and figured, hey, let's use it again for a new character later on.
Yeah, maybe. It's definitely a weird little crook.
It's kind of cool, though, you know?
Yeah, it is. It adds to the mystery.
It's like, who is this Madam Web? And why are there two of her?
Right. It makes you wonder. It makes you think.
Exactly.
And sometimes a little mystery is a good thing.
Right.
Keeps things interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does. It kind of makes you want to go back and read those old comics and see if there are any other, like, hidden connections or weird little details we've missed.
Right. And it just shows how these characters, even the ones that might seem kind of silly or throwaway, can have these really interesting backstories and evolutions.
Definitely. And it's those little inconsistencies and quirks that often make them so interesting.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the characters featured in these Hostess ads, but let's not forget about the snacks themselves.
Oh, yeah, the real stars of the show.
Right. I mean, Twinkies, fruit pies, cupcakes, those ads were promoting some serious sugar rushes.
Yeah, they were. But, you know, I think they were selling more than just the treats themselves.
What do you mean?
I think they were selling a whole lifestyle. Like this idea that a Hostess snack could solve any problem, big or small.
Oh, yeah, like a magic bullet.
Exactly. It was pure wish fulfillment for kids, right? And it definitely played on that desire for instant gratification.
Oh, for sure. And the blog post pointed out something I hadn't really noticed before. A lot of these ads actually mimic the art style of the comics they appeared in.
Oh, yeah, they wanted to seamlessly blend into the whole reading experience, right?
Yeah, it's like they were trying to make the ads feel like they were part of the story, not just an interruption.
Right. And you have to remember, back then, comic books, they were like a primary source of entertainment for kids, right? So seeing your favorite hero endorsing Twinkies, it had a huge impact.
Totally. And by using that same art style, it made the ads feel less intrusive, more like just another page in the comic.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, even Superman needs a sugar fix every now and then.
Uh-huh. Exactly. It made it seem normal, like part of a fun, adventurous life.
Right, like if Spider-Man eats Twinkies, then maybe I should too.
Right. It's funny how subtle but effective that kind of marketing can be.
It's true. You know, something else that struck me was the sheer variety of artists who worked on these Hostess ads.
Yeah. Some really big names, right?
Yeah, the blog post mentions like Ross Andrew. He did a bunch of them. He was like a legendary Spider-Man artist.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It makes you wonder what drew these talented artists to this kind of like commercial work.
Right. Why Hostess ads?
Well, you have to remember back then, comic book art wasn't always seen as like high art, you know?
Yeah, it was more of a job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was a commercial industry, and these artists were like professionals who knew how to tell a story visually. Plus, those Hostess ads, they offered like a unique creative challenge.
In what way?
Well, they had to condense a whole mini adventure into like a single page or two.
Yeah.
And it had to be funny, it had to be memorable.
Yeah, they really were like little mini stories, weren't they?
Yeah.
Each one with its own like beginning, middle, and end.
Right, and a Hostess snack always had to be like the key to solving the problem or saving the day.
Right. The blog post actually highlights each character's first appearance in a Hostess ad, which is kind of fun.
Oh yeah, like a little timeline.
Exactly. Batman's first one was Batman and the Mummy from January 1975,
Oh yeah, the classic.
where he and Robin used Twinkies to defeat a rampaging mummy.
Haha, it's so ridiculous. But so good.
It's brilliant. I mean, you have to wonder, did they have a whole team of writers just dedicated to coming up with these crazy scenarios?
I'm sure they had a lot of fun in those brainstorming sessions, right? Like, okay, how can we work Twinkies into a Green Lantern story?
Uh-huh, yeah. How can we make Casper the friendly ghost crave Twinkies so much that he builds a rocket ship to get them from another planet?
Exactly. And the best part is, it worked. These ads were so outlandish and memorable that people still remember them today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can still picture some of them vividly, like the one where Spider-Man uses a ho-ho to swing across the city.
Yeah. It's crazy how these simple images can stick with you for so long.
It really speaks to the power of nostalgia, doesn't it?
Nostalgia is a powerful force. And these ads, they tapped into it brilliantly. They combined like these beloved characters with sugary treats and created this like potent cocktail of childhood memories.
It's amazing how something as simple as a Hostess ad can evoke such strong emotions.
It's like a time machine, transporting you right back to your childhood.
Totally. To those carefree days of comic books and snack cakes.
And that's the magic of advertising, isn't it? At its best, it can capture a feeling, a moment, and make it last a lifetime.
You know, this whole deep dive into these Hostess ads, it's really been an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, me too.
I never realized how much thought and creativity went into them.
Right. There's so much more than just like simple ads.
Yeah. And speaking of digging deeper, there's one more aspect of these ads that I find really intriguing. The blog post talks about how they often played on themes of like problem solving and resourcefulness.
Oh, yeah. Like the characters would use Hostess snacks to like outsmart villains or escape tricky situations.
Exactly. It's like the snacks themselves were like tools for success.
Yeah. Like need to stop a runaway train, grab a Twinkie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think they chose to focus on those themes?
That's a good question. I think it was a clever way to appeal to like kids' sense of agency.
What do you mean?
Well, back then kids were often seen as like passive consumers of entertainment, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
But these ads, it kind of flipped that on its head. They showed kids that they could be resourceful too, they could solve problems, just like their favorite heroes.
And what better way to solve a problem than with a delicious Twinkie?
Right. It made the snacks seem like even more appealing.
It's amazing how these ads managed to be both entertaining and subtly persuasive.
Yeah, they were masters of marketing, for sure. They understood their target audience perfectly, and they knew how to craft messages that really resonated with them.
Yeah, it's like they snuck in those positive associations with the snacks right into the storylines.
Totally. I bet it had a pretty big impact on how kids saw those brands. Like you see Superman using a ho-ho to, I don't know, fix his spaceship. You start thinking, man, ho-hos, those are pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of cool, I'm kind of curious about the long-term impact of all this. Do you think these ads played a part in, I don't know, making both Hostess snacks, A&D, these comic book characters, so popular? Like, even to this day.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for Hostess, these ads, they made their snacks, like, iconic, right? Like, a part of pop culture. And for the characters. Well, being connected to something yummy and fun never hurts, right?
It's a win-win for sure. This deep dive has been such a trip down memory lane for me.
Me too.
I never realized how much there was to, unpack about these Hostess ads.
Yeah, they're like way more complex than you think at first.
Right. It's like you peel back the layers and there's all this cool stuff about marketing and creativity and the whole era, really.
It's true. It's like even the stuff we think of as, I don't know, just for kids, like junk food ads and comics, it can tell you a lot about what was going on back then,
Yeah, and how that stuff still affects us today. Well, I think we've officially eaten all the Twinkies and ho-hos this blog post has to offer.
I'm stuffed.
But seriously, this Superworld Comics blog post, it's been awesome. Thanks to everyone for sending it our way.
Yeah, this was a good one.
And for all of you listening, we hope this deep dive got you thinking about, like, old school advertising.
Yeah, it's a whole world out there.
And maybe you'll even, want to check out some of those classic comics yourself now.
See if you can spot any Hostess ads.
You never know what you'll find.
Absolutely. And hey, if you find anything cool, you know where to send it.
Yeah, we're always looking for new deep dive material.
Always.
So until next time, keep on exploring, keep on questioning, and as always, happy deep diving.
See you out there.